Welcome to the Environmental Justice Lab. I am your host, Dr. Leslie Joseph. Thank you so much for listening and joining. And today on the episode, we have a very, very special guest. We have Sadie Holzmeyer. She is the National Organizing Director for the Digital Democracy Project. We're so happy that she's been able to join us. How are you doing, Sadie?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you. Before we jumped on, I heard the birds chirping in the background. I hear some nature sounds. Where are you right now?
Yeah, I'm in a nature preserve RV park right now. I just relocated to Florida, so I'll have the flexibility of staying in an RV.
Oh, and doing your work out the RV. So when it's time to move, no worries about rent or mortgages. You just put gas in it and go.
That's right. You got it.
Nice. All across the country. Well, that's pretty cool. But I wanted to bring you on and talk to you because the Digital Democracy Project is something I think everybody that's listening should really be aware of, know about, get engaged with. And before we get to that, though, I do want our listeners to know a little bit more about you, the person behind the national organizing around this project. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, your upbringing, maybe educational things, professional things that you think would interest someone listening to us right now?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'm originally from Indiana, and I'd lived there most of my young life. I went to college there, and I played soccer my first year of college. And my major, eventually I switched to psychology. And then I got into the mental health field. My last year of college was actually when I learned about climate change, and I was really interested in it. I watched some documentaries, learned a lot more about it. I got involved in, after I graduated, I got involved in like the Sunrise Movement and a bunch of other climate organizations, and just realizing how important the issue was. And then eventually that's what got me into politics, realizing about I'm like, well, what do we do about this? And everyone changing their light bulbs or recycling doesn't seem like it's going to fix this. So I learned about like the policy solutions, things related to like the Green New Deal. That's what really got me interested is, okay, so we have these solutions. Now we just need to figure out how to pass them. Like with Citizens Climate Lobby, they talked a lot about like a carbon tax. Their Energy Innovation Act is like their main piece of legislation they're typically pushing for. So yeah, that's initially what got me interested in it. I'm like, okay, so how do we get these policies passed? And then it makes it clear that it's depending on who's in power, who's determining which bills are getting passed since they already exist. And yeah, so that's kind of how I got interested in politics. And I eventually then was thinking about along the lines of how to advance policies that I feel like we need, how to use technology as a way to kind of get mass input from voters to show what they want, to help pressure legislators, influence legislators to then do what the voters want. So I was working on like a similar idea of that to see how to make it happen. And I random Google search stumbled across Digital Democracy Project, and they seemed to be doing a lot. I mean, they were much further along, and it seemed very much aligned with what I was doing. So I reached out, and the timing just worked out well. They had started in Florida, and they were about to, they had just gotten their first political endorsement. So I moved to Florida to help out with knocking doors, outreach to voters, helping spread the word. And I was in Florida for a while, and I've been involved with Digital Democracy Project ever since, and was in Virginia for a little bit, now back to Florida. So yeah, now I'm just kind of planning on doing wherever Digital Democracy Project takes me to see if we can make this happen.
Nice. Very nice. So before we get to the Digital Democracy Project, can you tell me some of your thoughts about, the current state of environmental policy and legislation? And what are your thoughts about what needs to change or what needs to be, adjusted to improve the environment around us and to kind of move us toward what you would see as a better environmental future?
Yeah, I mean, learning about how it seems like the source of, I mean, a lot of the climate change is from the emissions, and a lot of the emissions are coming from like all the fossil fuels we're burning, like burning gas, burning oil, natural gas even,
Hmm.
and the methane emissions. So that seems to be like the source of the problem. And then on top of you have a bunch of the overdevelopment or taking down the trees that are absorbing the emissions. So those kind of seem to be like where the main focus for me seems to be. I mean, the environment will take care of itself if we aren't destroying it. So, yeah, I mean, the clean water, clean air is a thing, but that's kind of where I see the source of the problem. So that's where I had gotten involved with Citizens Climate Lobby, and the carbon tax would just put a tax on the carbon emissions that like utility companies or whichever large industries are creating these emissions. So putting the tax on it to then like disincentivize creating those emissions and then therefore incentivize shifting to cleaner, more renewable alternatives that already exist. And I mean, we have the whole, we're subsidizing fossil fuels. So if we
Hmm.
weren't doing that, it would already make renewable energy more competitive and cheaper. So, yeah, those are kind of where my main focus is. And then, I mean, as far as like what's been going on too, there's a lot of policies that I've been kind of surprised to see are being introduced even right now at the federal level that are impacting the environment that are kind of terrifying. But I was looking at one last night about like changing the Endangered Species Act to make it to where like they're not quite considered endangered yet, like kind of deregulating that in a way to where, yeah, we're
Hmm.
not being as protective of endangered species. So, and yeah, like there was one about emissions. If you can show that they're from like events like wildfires or traffic that you can't control, then basically you don't have to abide by certain like emission air standards. So yeah, there's a lot going
Hmm.
on with the environment that, I mean, there's a lot going on overall, so that's not getting the attention it deserves.
Yeah, no, I agree. Over the last year, you think about how the EPA has been gutted of all of its staff and the scientists have been kind of sent home, and, things that the CDC is doing and all these other kind of NOAA, the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, how that's been kind of taken down as well. There's a concerted effort, at least in the United States, to deregulate, disincentivize anything related to the environment. So I'm glad you're on the front lines fighting on the policy side too, to try to push for things that would actually, I don't know, mitigate, reverse, do something to
Mm-hmm.
change the trajectory that we're on, because we're not going in a good direction whatsoever. And so I'm happy that you're doing that. And so then let's talk about the Digital Democracy Project. Tell us what it is, what it does. Tell us how it can help with these things that we're just talking about in terms of pushing for better environmental policies and trying to move legislation in the right direction.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Digital Democracy Project. We're a nonpartisan nonprofit, and overall we're providing a free civic engagement platform, really building a voter-driven system of government. So the civic engagement platform is where we're posting real bills. Voters are using real certified mobile voting technology. They weigh in. They say if they support or oppose the bill, how they want their legislators to vote. And then our nonprofit is posting the continuously updating results. So as like different from how right now a lot of voters are contacting their legislators telling them how they want them to vote via email, phone
Mm-hmm.
call. However, we're kind of adding more transparency to that, to where now not only does the legislator know what the voters want, but everyone knows what the voters want. The media knows, and voters in that district, candidates, everyone knows. So that's kind of where initially we're, and my favorite part of it was that ability to use technology to get the power and numbers effect, where we can really scale up and get more voters weighing in, showing what they want before our legislators are voting. So that's kind of the first half of it, showing what the voters want. And then afterwards, we end up posting how each legislator ends up voting, and we're doing a side-by-side comparison to make it explicitly clear like how often their votes are matching what the voters wanted, how often they're supposed to be representing what the voters wanted. So trying to help facilitate that, make that clear. And then all the legislators get a score based on how closely they matched. So we're trying to make it clear to voters also too who's not listening to them, who's not representing what they want. And then the voters are the ones that can hold them accountable at election time. So at least trying to make it clear who's not, they say like voting against your best interests, trying to make that clear as well and give voters more power to have more say on the bills, show them what they want, and then also drive that accountability. So yeah, it can be a little complex. That's kind of what our nonprofit's doing overall. But then for like all these major bills, like the ones we already spoke about, where we can post those and then get mass amounts of voters weighing in, showing what they want. And if voters overall support it, we can show that, kind of help pressure legislators to vote for them or advance them. If they oppose it, that kind of helps pressure legislators to oppose those bills. And yeah, you can see a district level breakdown too. So you can really, if you want to target certain legislators, you can get more voters in that district weighing in. So yeah, that's kind of an overview about Digital Democracy Project.
Okay, so essentially if I'm a voter, I download this app on my phone, open the app. There's a list of bills that are being, I guess, proposed or about to be voted on in the legislative body. I guess this is national level or state level, or what level are we talking?
Yeah, it's both. We started at the state level in Florida and then expanded. We added federal bills and then expanded where any U.S. voter can vote on federal bills. And then 2026, we did some state legislation in a total of 7 states. And then 2027, we'd like to be doing state legislation in all 50 states, as well as continuing to do federal bills for all voters too.
Okay, and so I have this app. The bills come up. I vote on the app and I can kind of see how other people who have the app vote on those same bills. And literally anybody who has this app can see that. So the legislator can see it, the news media can see it, friends can see it, everybody can see it. Does the Digital Democracy Project do any type of advocacy for certain bills or for certain ways of voting? Or is it really just, here it is, vote how you want to vote. We just want to see what you want to have happen.
Yeah, so a couple of things about that. So it initially started out as a mobile app, and then they also added a web app option. So yeah, you don't have to use a phone. You don't have to download the app. You can go through. We have the link posted on our website, so you can go through there. And then there's a verification process. So voters verify that they are who they say they are. And I can get more into that too. I don't want to forget to speak on all your points. But yeah, anyone's able to vote on that. And then so we also have it set up too to where the mobile app, the votes technology, is where we're using them especially for the verification process to help with that, because security is really high and the verification want people to feel comfortable doing that. But then it's paired up to where our website is where we're posting all the info, all the results. So whether you're able to vote or not, whether you are adding your votes in or not, everyone's able to see the results. So that adds kind of even more transparency to it. And then as far as the advocacy, that's kind of like our main purpose, is that we're providing this technology, giving voters a say on, really showing what they want. So we want to stay neutral, and that way we can attract voters from every side. We don't want Republicans to say, oh, this is a Democrat thing. Democrats to say this is a Republican thing. And then we're trying to keep the party politics out of it. So really focused on, we want all voters, everyone having their say, weighing in and showing what they want regardless of party.
Okay. And I'm assuming you have to be a registered voter to use the app, or is it just voting age? How does that work? Are you verifying that people are actually registered before they can use the app and put their vote in?
Yeah. So yeah, the way it's set up, we're doing the voter verification by verifying people are registered voters. So we're using the voter file. We get the voter file from the different states we're in. And then the votes technology, used for they're certified mobile voting technology used for real elections. So they're set up that way to where they're used for registered voters to be able to cast their votes in elections. So yeah, their standard process and the way voters can get signed up to then vote on bills is to use a photo ID, and they do a selfie scan.
Mm-hmm.
So the same process for them being used to vote in an election. And then yeah, their security is really high, and then once you get verified, all your info is deleted. So that's like a one-time process, and then there's all the bills that voters are able to weigh in on. And we get asked about that a lot. I know they can be hesitant to want to do that, so that's why a lot of this is building trust, spreading awareness. But I had questions about it myself at first, like about it being required, but it does make sense to me, especially even increasingly more and more so, that if we weren't verifying people, you could have like a bad actor come in and make a bunch of fake accounts and say like, misrepresent what the voters want, say the voters support like some kind of like lower healthcare or something, and then some pharmaceutical industry or something comes in and makes a bunch of fake accounts and says that they oppose this, then that would kind of destroy the whole project by then being the opposite of what the voters want. So yeah, the verification part not only shows they're real people, but it helps protect from like bots. It helps know that people are only voting one time, one person, one vote, protecting from the bad actors. And then that way legislators can trust these are results from their actual voters in their district, so they can use them to inform their voting. And then for voters' sake too, it helps add more credibility to the results. So it carries more weight to pressure legislators, because then legislators can't say, well, these are fake, I'm not going to listen. So yeah, the verification's another part about it that is, I think, pretty important that we get asked about a lot. So yeah, I can answer more about that too.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's the most important thing people care about, right? Because obviously, whoever I'm siding with, whatever I want to see happen, I could lobby in ways to kind of, juice the numbers, right? Find friends, find people, children, people who aren't alive anymore. I can make accounts with their information and try to pretend like I'm voting as them. A corporation can dispatch its PR team to flood, that app with different accounts, different ways of doing things in different states, because they might be, nationwide or multinational, getting people from outside the country to pretend like they're American to vote on a bill in Indiana. Like, it would be weird. And so I know that's the thing that people really are concerned about. I would be too. And to hear you talk about the verification, the process, and the very specific ways in which you ensure that they're registered voters in those states goes a long way to build trust and to ensure that whatever we're seeing is truly representative. And that when we talk about it, we say, oh, people are looking for this, and we know for sure that if they had a chance to vote on it, that's how they would vote. And so that's a really important thing to ensure it continues. And I'm sure it's difficult state to state. It takes a lot to make that happen. How many users do you know have used this product?
Yeah, we've had over 20,000 voters that have verified in the Votes app. So we're kind of also partnered to where when they're continuously being used still for elections. Like, they were used for Mexico's national elections, to where Mexican voters that were in the U.S., they were abroad, they had the option to vote using Votes. Canada's been using them in a lot of elections. Probably not too surprising. It's not used very much on a large scale in the United States. There's been a lot of controversy lately with just skepticism about voting, voter fraud, all that stuff. So they're used a lot for like party elections or like union elections in the United States. So we're kind of partnered to where when voters get verified to vote in an election, they also get verified or it's the same process, but they also get access then to be able to vote on bills with Digital Democracy Project. So yeah, we've had over 20,000 voters in Florida. Like we were over like 1,500 or so voters. And then now it's a matter of keeping them weighing in on bills over time and getting all those voters continuously weighing in on all the bills. So we'll always be scaling up. We'll always be growing and working on keeping the engagement up.
Yeah. And so, and I hate to ask the question this way, but a lot of Americans in particular aren't as engaged civically as we'd like. They don't know what bills are coming. They don't know what the bills mean or how it might affect them. They don't know when it's going to come up for a vote, when it's being debated, when it goes into effect. Does this project do anything to help educate the people on these platforms? Give them notifications when there's a new bill up, or give them some kind of, summary of a bill. They have to read the whole thing or just get the one-liner that confuses them, like on the ballot. Those ballot measures are hard to understand sometimes. And so is there a way that this project kind of allows people to understand what's going on so they can be informed when they use the application to make a vote?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's something we've actually expanded on. So, yeah, a lot of the voters initially using it are the ones that are more engaged, but it is a really good way, I think, to bring people into the political space and help them get more interested, more involved, and more informed. So, some of the features overall will provide a summary of the bill, will break down the legal language provided in terms that everyone can understand. And so that's one thing. And then we have pros and cons. So you can see kind of different aspects of it, different factors to consider. And then individuals can also add in to those pros and cons too. So kind of like a community discussion in that way. And then there's also a way to see like the status of the bill. You can see who sponsored it, who co-sponsored it, all the timeline of all the actions, like if it passed committees. Since then, we've also added, there's organizational stances, so you can see which organizations have taken a stance in support, which ones opposed. You can also get more information about each individual organization. It's got their website if you wanted to learn more or even get involved. That's another option. And then we had added, with that too, we added in impact statements, so you can make it clear about like what a yes vote means, why organizations may support, what a no vote means, why they may oppose. And then our founder has a background in AI. He created this chat tool. It's called VoteBot. So that's a way for like, if there's language in the bill that seems confusing, someone even wants to have the summary in a more easy way to understand, they want more details, they can ask about different aspects of it. So that's an option. I like to ask things like, well, why was this bill filed? And like the organization that take a stance, it's able to search the web and it can provide like the citation. So I can read like from that organization's perspective, why they supported or opposed the bill. So that kind of really helps like fill in the gaps to where you can get all the info you need about the bill. And yeah, we want people to feel comfortable that they understand the legislation well enough so that they then feel comfortable adding their vote in for if they support or oppose. So yeah, there is a lot of educational aspects added into.
Very nice. Very nice. And earlier you talked about having endorsements, political endorsements for the project. And so I am curious to learn more about who has been supportive of this effort, whether it's individual politicians or certain political committees or groups or organizations, nonprofits. Have you heard anything from any local partisan organizations, RNCs, DNCs, DNCCs, RNCCs, all those kind of things? Have you had an opportunity to kind of pitch it to different caucuses within a legislative body? Like, what have you been hearing? What has been going on in terms of people actually supporting this effort that you're doing? It's nonpartisan. It doesn't lean one way or the other. In theory, we should all want it, right? So we can all hear what everybody is saying, what everybody wants to have happen so we can make the best decisions for the people that we represent. I wonder if you're getting that, though, from the people that you talk to and from the organization that you engage when you try to get support for this project.
Yeah, so I think initially, I think what's worked the best has been we've gotten a lot of support from organizations that, especially that are nonpartisan, like the League of Women Voters has been one they support civic involvement, civic education. So it ties in really well with what the League does. And then a lot of the nonpartisan organizations are more focused on issue advocacy and they advocate around legislation. So it makes sense that they would align really well with this. So we've gotten a lot of interest from, like climate organizations, like LGBTQ plus groups and like women's rights groups, different issue areas like that. And even like Medicare for All Florida they had been using it to get input on like the Medicare for All bill and some state level healthcare bills. So yeah, a lot of interest from organizations like those, and we actually need to try to go through and get official partner organizations to add those to our website. But there are a lot of those that we've kind of worked with and done presentations to. And then as far as like more partisan groups, we have gotten a lot of interest from different partisan groups, but we do also get questions and like concerns about like, well, what if the other side gets more voters weighing in and they take this stance and then our stance is this. So that's kind of where like from them being in a partisan perspective where they kind of view it that way. But in Florida, too, especially, we already have a process like the ballot measure constitutional amendments, especially the ones that voters are able to put onto the ballot. So we had like legalizing recreational marijuana, ending the 6-week abortion ban in 2024. So those are examples of where they're on the ballot, and then voters overall are the ones that are able to vote. And if the majority, well, in Florida, it's a 60% threshold, but if the majority of the voters support those, they pass. If they don't pass. So it's kind of similar to like what we're doing. So as far as how that's gone in Florida, it's where like they get majority support, even though they may be issues that could be viewed more leaning one way or the other. They get more majority support. They didn't make the 60% threshold, but like 55%. So that's kind of where like I try to explain, make the case to where like once you take the party politics out of it and you're focused on the issues, not this D versus R, that I think you do get a lot of people just kind of looking at it objectively, like what makes most sense to them. And then, yeah, as far as the candidates, the political endorsements, so it's an option for any candidate, any legislator, especially running at the state and federal level, since we're doing state and federal legislation. They can endorse, we call it endorsing digital democracy projects. So they say, I want to use this technology as a way to hear from the voters. And that's kind of the extent of it. It's just like them communicating like, yes, I want to use this to get input from my voters to inform my voting if I get elected. So that helps us too, like with voters, like why they should weigh in. Well, you have a candidate running or a legislator that wants to use it to hear from you. So yeah, we've had some initial support from, especially Florida's been where a lot of our endorsements have come from, since that's where we had started. So one of our first supporters was actually a Republican out of the Keys, and he talked about how his example he gave was about the Don't Say Gay bill, and how he voted. He represents the Keys, which is purple and like a purple area, and they definitely were, his district was opposed to that bill. So he voted against the bill. The Republican Party that he belongs to, they supported the bill. So they actually primaried him for going against what the party wanted. So he had made the case where, like, if I had this data, I had this input to show this is what my voters want. If I don't do what they want, then we could possibly lose this seat in the general election, next election. So yeah, that was kind of like one of the first interesting perspectives from one of our legislators who had supported. And then we'd gotten support from some in the Orlando area, especially, who there's some registered Democrats that had supported, and they're still in office, and they still use this as a way to get input from voters. And then we especially get a lot of interest from candidates who are trying to kind of stand out as a candidate and really make the case for voters to win their support to get elected. So something really unique about like what we're doing for candidates' sake, most of them are typically registering as a Democrat, Republican, and then we do have quite a few that register as NPA candidate. But with us being nonpartisan, it helps them make the case that, like, regardless of what party you're with, I want to use this technology to hear from you to inform my voting. I'm not trying to do what my party says and stay in line with my party. So yeah, we get a lot of interest from state level candidates, and especially at the congressional level, we've gotten a lot of interest now, especially in Florida. And we just had a candidate out of California. It was our first candidate outside of Florida that had endorsed. So hopefully we'll keep expanding on that too. And then if I can add one more thing too, we have a candidate. I was at an event with him last night. He's using this technology. It's kind of foundational to his campaign. So he already had the idea of using technology to get input from voters. And then he kind of like a direct democracy theory to where like however the majority of his voters vote is how he's going to vote on bills. So he's gonna, he calls it Ask America. He's gonna create educational videos about all the bills and then put it in front of his voters, and he'll use our technology. And then however the majority of the voters vote will be how he decides to vote in Congress if he gets elected. So that's another interesting case where, I mean, most candidates are using it to inform their voting, but he's using it to actually decide his voting.
That's interesting. So he's going to only vote in the way that the majority of people who are on the platform vote. And he's going to always vote that way. That's his pledge to them.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to, get support from anyone.
I wonder if he's concerned about turnout on the app, though. I wonder if he's thinking about whether or not what he sees there represents his complete district. Or I guess he's going to try to get everybody in his district on the app. That's the idea.
Yeah, I mean, like we were at an event with him yesterday to try to help get interested people in there now. So he's able to start spreading the word, get voters in there now. And then, I think he has a plan, some kind of, what's the word, like a minimum threshold that he wants to get to where this will go into effect. So, I mean, there's still quite a bit of time before November, and then he wouldn't even be voting on bills until January. So I think we'd be able to scale up a lot. And if he gets elected, that's a lot more of a reason for voters in his district to be weighing in. And then as far as like the representativeness too, I think it kind of reflects like how democracy works, where it's a participation type of thing, where whoever's voting is the one determining the outcomes. Like the direct democracy platform that he has, it's going to be a matter of who's participating that's going to be determining the outcome. And that's kind of how Digital Democracy Project works. We're not like how polling is, where they're trying to make a representative sample or like weight some people's feedback or leave people's feedback out. We're just providing like the raw total results of how every individual voter votes. So kind of like I had said, like a more transparent way of contacting your legislator. So whoever weighs in is what we're displaying.
No, that's a good point. I didn't think about that, because obviously the people who are actually voting for those candidates would probably be the ones who would be interested in the process and what they're voting for. The same group of people, essentially. And so you'd want them to be represented versus just anybody who's not even participating saying something. Wouldn't make much sense. I wonder, are there any other candidates who are vowing to use it that way, to say, I do what the voters on Digital Democracy Project tell me to do?
Right now, there's not, but I know like the event he was at, there were 2 other candidates that I'll be meeting with now too. So I know he also wants more people to follow along and do that direct democracy type of strategy. So we'll see. There might be more that come out of it. And then especially if he gets elected and it works, hopefully, especially we'll get more people then following along. But I think our democracy will work a lot better if we had legislators not only listening to their voters, but like how he says about informing them about what's going on, that helps keep them engaged, getting them weighing in. So I definitely think our legislators, candidates need to move more in that direction. And we'll have virtual events too, where we'll kind of do like an example of that. He right now is the main one who's been participating. So he'll provide like a legislative review of the recent bills that we've posted in Digital Democracy Project. So I know I've heard already that this weekend we'll be posting at least one bill about the ballroom. That's been a hot topic now. So that's a way for voters to get more, like your listeners, if they want to learn more about us, we'll give like a overview about Digital Democracy Project, show more of the resources, and then he'll go through and provide that breakdown about the bills that voters can then weigh in on.
Yeah, no, I love that approach. And honestly, any kind of approach that connects directly voter to representative, I think is always going to be a better approach. It cuts out a lot of the moneyed interest. It cuts out a lot of corporate influence. It cuts out a lot of super PAC kind of group think in terms of what they want people to do. And so anything that does that, and any pledge to do that, would be welcome in my opinion. So I definitely appreciate him doing that. Hopefully more people think about, if it's not well, it should be this project, obviously, but any way to make those connections, we should be encouraging them to do that. What was I going to ask you? This is what I wanted to ask you about. Obviously, direct democracy, it's nonpartisan, just the issues. Is there any interest in the project doing elections themselves, like actually having candidates on the platform and people showing which one they would vote for, kind of like a poll, but of registered voters in a sense, and state level, national level, representatives, senators, that kind of thing? Or is it strictly bills and legislation?
Yeah, it's interesting you asked that. I did want to add too, we do like the ballot measures. You had brought that up earlier. We do post like the ones that the legislature votes to put those on the ballot. We'll post those too, and then voters can learn about them. Like the redistricting one from Virginia, we covered that one. But yeah, as far as like elections, we actually did. We called it a digital convention. So we used the Votes app to. It was whenever initially the first time we did it was when Joe Biden had dropped out of the presidential election, the race, and before the 2024 election. So we quickly like put together to where we posted a list of potential candidates that were being talked about replacing him at the top of the ticket. And then we also added in about candidates voters could choose from for who they'd like the vice presidential candidates to be. So we put those into the Votes app, and the voters that had already been verified and people who then verified, they were able to go through and select who they wanted to replace Joe Biden. So, and we actually used ranked choice voting. So it was really neat because you could go through, there was like an info bubble next to each individual. You could read more about them. And then going through ranked choice voting is really easy in a mobile format. So just going through and like upvoting people to the top and ranking your preferences. And then that way we were able to show like the live updating results, even the district level breakdowns, who they supported. And then we did the same thing whenever it was Marco Rubio got appointed to the Trump administration. He was our U.S. Senator in Florida. So DeSantis then appointed his replacement. So we did something similar, put it in front of the voters to at least be able to weigh in, get input on who they would like him to then replace, become our next U.S. Senator. So that's something that we've done. Obviously, we don't even talk about it a lot because that's not our main focus, but that's something we would like to expand on. We had talked about doing like calling it like a citizens election to where it's similar to the like maybe a current race, like we were going to maybe do like the Florida governor's race and have it to where it's the same candidates, but voters are able to use like it would be open primaries since anyone can vote regardless of party, ranked choice voting and mobile voting. And then we can compare the results of if we had like these reforms, what the election outcome would compare to how it actually turns out from our current system. So that's something else we'd like to expand on, but there's a lot of interesting, cool stuff we could be doing, and there's limited resources, limited time. So yeah, hopefully we'll be able to do more of that too. That was exciting, interesting use.
Yeah. What kind of staff do you have to kind of make all this happen? I mean, is it a bunch of volunteers? Do you have people that are under you that you're kind of managing and deploying to push forward certain initiatives? Like, how is the structure of the organization itself set up, and how is it able to do all these different things that it's trying to do?
Yeah, we're an all volunteer team. So our founder, he has a background AI, the technology. So he had, like when I came on, he had made connections to some people in his network that were helping build the technology. So they had it built when I was on board and already tested out in use. And then we have our legislative coordinator. He works as a legislative aide in Tallahassee. So he's really in the know on all the bills. He's crucial to what we're doing, knowing which bills to put in, making sure that we're communicating about them well. And then I do a lot of the organizing outreach. And then we also now have a Washington State organizing director. So she was covering when we had expanded in Washington. She was doing those bills. And she's also kindly volunteered to do like Idaho and Oregon for 2027. And yeah, so we're all volunteers, and people that are interested will have them help out, especially reaching out if they have people in their networks, maybe friends, family that would be interested, showing them how they can get them weighing in, reaching out to organizations in their network. And then we definitely would really like to have more people that, especially that are in different states, so we can have like state organizing directors in each state that can relate to us. That's going to be a lot of what our work will be in 2027. We'll be getting that input from like what bills are going on at the state level that we know then to put into the app. So yeah, we definitely want to be making those connections, and volunteers are they're pretty crucial for what we're doing. All of our funding goes to keeping up the technology. There's a lot of technology involved, so that's where all of our funding goes. So we definitely appreciate the volunteers that are involved and definitely want to continue getting more involved, helping us out.
Okay, you talked about funding. So what type of funding, where's it come from? Is it donations? Do you have certain partners who are actively financially supporting the project? How is that part of it handled?
Yeah, so it's all grassroots funded. We get a lot of donations through our website, like small dollar donations. And then we've gotten some grants. We're always applying to get more grant funding. And then we also had bipartisan support for funding from the Florida State Legislature in the 2024 session to use this as a way to get more input from voters to inform the legislators, inform their voting. And it made it all the way through the legislature, the funding, and then DeSantis line item vetoed it. So that would have been
My
really
goodness.
it would have been really helpful. Another source of funding that would really help us expand quicker, get more voters weighing in, but DeSantis was not on board.
That's really, it's not surprising, but I do wonder why someone wouldn't be on board with this. Like, I guess outside of the voter fraud verification concerns people might have, is there any other reason that you've heard or people have shared with you that would lead them to not support this type of action, this type of project?
Yeah, I've heard, like I had mentioned earlier, about the concern that different voters, voters that are on the opposite side of whoever's looking at this would, if they're concerned that more of those voters would weigh in. And then, like for legislators and candidates that aren't interested in hearing from their voters or representing what their voters or don't feel confident that they're doing what they want, then that can it's meant to expose that. So I can see where they would not support this because, it's making that explicitly clear to voters if they're not doing what they want. So, those are the main examples that come to mind about like why some have expressed not supporting.
So here's the thing. The Digital Democracy Project is nonpartisan. It doesn't lean one way or the other. It doesn't advocate one way or another in terms of what we should or shouldn't support. And it gives people a voice and an opportunity to share with people what they believe and where they stand on an issue. And so I feel like every single person would at least want that, right? You don't have to vote a certain way, but it would be great to hear from people and know what they want when you're deciding how to vote. And so for someone who doesn't support it, for someone who doesn't say, yes, I want more people on this platform so I can hear more of their perspective, would it be wrong for me to say to them that they are anti-democratic, anti the people, they have no interest in what we have to say, and they have no plans to vote in ways that would reflect what we would want? I don't think it's too much to say, hey, you can support this or you can be like that. But I don't know, is that an unfair assessment of someone's unwillingness to support what you're doing?
That is really interesting. I think it seems fair. And I feel like what we're doing is not really controversial. It's just, like you said, you explained it well about getting input from voters, and every candidate legislator should want to hear from voters. That's, like I said, they're supposed to be representing what the voters want. So that would be interesting to like keep tabs on who declines to do that. And I think it would speak volumes that they do seem not so very democratic. So, yeah, I mean, I think that seems fair, but that's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine every attack ad being, hey, this person doesn't want to hear from you. Here's the proof. And it would be an easy argument to make. And when that person tries to respond, all you have to do is just say, hey, well, then tell your supporters to get on the app too. It's not like it's only for one or the other. Everybody's welcome. Everybody should participate. And we should have an open dialogue and discussion and understanding of these issues and where people stand so we can make the right decision that the people would want to have. Just do it. It just seems that simple. And I don't understand why someone would say no, other than I don't want to know. You know, plausible deniability. I didn't realize that was a problem. Well, you could have learned if you used the project properly. Let me ask you this one last question. I know you got to go. We got to get out of here. What would it take? You're trying to get from, I think, 7 states to all 50. What would it take for you to do that? How big of an effort is needed to, because it feels like a lot. So 50 states, state bills, national bills, people from all walks of life on the app, registered voters trying to weigh in all across the country. What would it take to get there?
Yeah. The way I see it, I feel like there's multiple avenues for us to get the scale that I want. So I think initially, as I had mentioned, I think one of the core crucial things would be getting those people that are relaying to us the bills to put in the app so we're able to handle that load of 50 states, because it's tough for us to, I mean, there's info about the bills, but what's really helpful is having someone who knows like which ones are moving, when they're going to come up for a vote. So if we could connect with like a legislative aid in each state, or like different national organizations that are already doing this type of work, and them relaying to us which bills that we should be posting. So as far as like how it works, that's something that I think we could definitely really use to help out. And then as far as scaling up, if we got like the voters that are already in the app, getting them weighing in on all the bills that we've posted, and then the relational organizing, them reaching out to people in their networks, getting them weighing in, and like the organizations we've connected with, if they start continuously using this for their advocacy and getting their members engaged around legislation. And there's a lot of organizations that have a massive base of volunteers, supporters. They have a national presence. So it would be an option for any of them, all of them, to be able to use this and get their volunteers weighing in. And then that compounded effect of all the volunteers, all the people, the supporters across the country is where we would get a lot of scale. And then social media is a whole nother option that I feel like we have not tapped much into. There's a lot of potential there we haven't tapped into. So like our helping our posts get more traction, or people that already have audiences, influencers, helping to drive their volunteers, their members, getting them, or their supporters, subscribers, listeners, getting them using this as a way to weigh in on bills, them even communicating about the bills. And ideally, we'd have a lot of candidates and legislators across the country. Even like we have one in Florida who includes us in her emails. All the people that are seeing the email communications from their legislators, their candidates, or they go to a campaign website, seeing this and then being able to weigh in. So yeah, those are some of the ways that I could see us expanding. And then like even in-person events, showing up at like civic community events, tabling there. We do a lot of that in Florida. Protest, if we had people at like all 7 million people that were going to protest, having them weighing in, or even counter protests, people that care in any way, either regardless of which side, and then people at the protest signing up other people that way. There's tons of ways that we can expand and scale up. And that's kind of where like I feel like this could happen really quickly if we get people on board and we're able to kind of attack in these different avenues, get more voters that way. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways that I think we could scale, and the technology set up to do it quickly, easily. It's got the accessibility feature where you may not be able to go to an in-person meeting or even show up to a protest. But if you have access to a phone or a computer, then you're able to weigh in this way. So yeah, I'm eager, I guess, to really get this up to scale. So yeah, we'll see how quickly we can make it happen. And we appreciate anyone who's interested in helping out too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I guess you're not looking for a director in each state. The way you have one in Washington, you used to be the one in Florida. Do you need 50 directors for the states
Ideally,
to kind of pull together?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that would be helpful to kind of have. I mean, we could do it. Ideally, we would have county level, city level. We could have organizing directors at everywhere that are helping get voters into the app. But then, yeah, having someone at each state level to then help manage, track state organizations. Like what I was doing for Florida, there's a lot of different organizations that care about different bills. So having someone in those states to help kind of manage that. And then, yeah, having the legislative aid in Tallahassee, if we had that in all 50 states where they're literally in the legislative body, they're in all the meetings, they have the agendas, they know what's moving. And if we had like even maybe like a partnership of an organizing director and a legislative aid, kind of how we've had in Florida, that I think would be even more ideal. And yeah, long term, we want to be at the local level too. So starting to have more presence down to the county levels in different areas would be helpful for that eventual local level too.
Okay. Very nice. Most of our listeners are in the United States, but there are a few that are international. Do you see, or is there any thought to doing something similar in other countries, other places around the world? Obviously, you have to be a democracy, to have a democracy project. But do you think that this is the kind of thing that might go beyond the United States of America?
Yeah, I think it definitely seems like it would be really useful regardless of, I mean, even what your current government setup is. I feel like it would be more useful in places that are less democratic to at least have that way for them to weigh in and kind of show how that compares to how they're currently being governed. So I mean, yeah, even ideally, I think that would be neat to have a digital democracy project in all the countries across the world. Yeah, there's ways for any voter in any country to be able to weigh in on whatever bills, policies are being debated and give them more of a voice, empower them. So yeah, that's something that I think would be really neat to do too.
Yeah, I think so too. It would be really cool to see in different languages, different countries, different contexts. It'll be interesting to see how that would look in different places.
The Votes app is already set up to where it'll translate to whatever language your phone is set to. It'll already do that translation. So, yeah, it seems very doable.
Okay. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
But before we go, is there anything else that you want to share with us in terms of the app itself, the project, the trajectory, anything maybe that you want us to leave with? And obviously, we're going to have links to the website, links to all of these things to sign up and to volunteer and donate and support. So we want everybody to support this effort for sure and get democracy straight to the people who are making decisions. What else do you want us to leave with after this conversation?
Yeah, I can provide like a call to action. So if you're not already familiar with us, definitely go to our website, digitaldemocracyproject.org, check out the links, and you can watch an explainer video about us. There's all the bills that we've posted since we started are on there, so you can view all those. You can view the 120 or so federal bills right now that voters are still able to weigh in on. So those, you can check out all the info, but ideally we do want everyone having their say on the bills. So from the website, you can check out the Vote tab and either download the Votes mobile app or go through the web app. And again, it takes like maybe 2 minutes or so to get verified. Once you're verified, you're able to vote on all these bills. So if you like what we're doing, you support it, that's probably the main way to really help support us is get in there and start adding your votes in and telling other people and getting other people weighing in. So that's probably my main call to action to leave your listeners with.
Yeah, no problem. And it doesn't matter what state I live in. So if your state isn't set up in the app currently, you haven't hit all 50 yet, we can still sign up and vote on the national bills? Is that
For
how it
sure.
works now currently?
Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. Yes. Yeah. Any U.S. voter can vote on the federal bills. And then 2027, it should be to where once we start posting bills in your state, they'll just pop up in the app. So you don't even have to do anything. They'll just show up then.
Nice. Well, with that, I want to thank you, Sadie, for joining us, sharing this project, talking more about what it does, and encouraging us to get involved in politics, get involved in our democracy, because the people are the power behind the change that we want to see. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing. Keep it up. Keep that RV running well and keep moving around. Whatever you got to do to get more people engaged in our democratic process, we're all for it. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me and thanks for helping spread the word. We appreciate it.
No, you're welcome. And with that, this has been another episode of the Environmental Justice Lab, where we are for the people and the planet. We'll see you next time.